With Doom Eternal now officially out, it is fair to say that the Doom franchise is back in the minds of gamers, and in a big way. If you're interested in some of the initial performance tweaks you can do on Eternal to make it work better than budget-oriented systems, you only have to click on my video card in the corner or the description. But let's turn the clock a little bit for this one. The original Doom 2016 reboot not only continues to be a fantastic game, but it is also regularly discounted now to the point that it is one of the greatest values available if you like frenetic single-player shooters. I already made a video close to when the game released explaining how to remove some of the game's shadows for a very good quick performance boost. But even when I did, I could not shake a certain feeling of being cheated. You see, I know for a fact this engine can do way more. Wolfenstein: The New Order uses an older version of this engine, and you could get pretty granular with some of the stuff you could disable. And when Doom had its original pre-release open beta, a lot of those commands were there. But then, when the game released months later, they were mysteriously gone. That changes today. The Doom Legacy mod unlocks all the commands for Doom, giving users the tool to screw around with the game in several ways, and most importantly, give us the tools to finally unlock this game's full potential. And installing the mod is as easy as downloading the DLL file that I'll link in the description and copying over to your Doom installation folder. Really, simple as that. If you keep hearing me saying console commands and think I mean an actual game console, what I'm talking about is this handy thing, Developer Console. This is where we can change the commands and variables that affect the way a game works. You can open this with the tilde button that is often over or under the escape key and next to the one. If you have a keyboard in a different language, usually whatever key is in the same position works. Let's go into some of the commands. For example, on my original Doom video, I'll show you a command that tricks the game into disabling shadows. The actual command that is supposed to do that is rskip shadows 1. Big deal, a command that does a thing we already know how to do. How about we just disable all dynamic lighting? We can do that with rskip lights 1. Just great. Now this is a bit of a semi-destructive change since it will make some of the indoor areas of the game significantly darker, but this is something you can play around within different scenarios depending on how you need it, since this is one less thing for the game to render and can be easily toggled on and off. Next, decals. Decals are usually flat effects added to surfaces like bullet holes, and in this game they're used for lots of decorative elements. You can just kill them all with rskip decals 1. This is a non-destructive change that can make a huge difference in some of the more crowded areas of the game. Here's another fun one, rskip particles 1. Lots of elements in the game, such as smoke effects or even the demonic balls on top of the nest, are considered particles, so enabling this command gets rid of a lot of those decorative elements as well. Interestingly enough, this also disables explosions. The explosions and their damage are still there, but they're now invisible. Let's add some variety and do some more destructive changes. VT LOD bias is used to determine the distance at which lower quality textures are loaded to save on performance. The higher the number, the closer they're loaded to you. So a high number like 15 basically just uses low textures everywhere. Which, yeah, now this is a mood. If this is worth it will depend on your specific setup and the gain you see from this. It does look pretty interesting and makes for great low-spec material. This command can be quite useful, but not everyone will see the same benefit from it, so be sure to test this individually and add or remove it from the commands depending on how much use you can get from it. Let's do something a bit more advanced and add dynamic resolution scaling. This was brought to my attention by Alex from Digital Foundry, who used these commands to create custom dynamic resolution profiles for Doom. The console version of the games are able to dynamically drop the vertical or horizontal resolution of the game to keep stable frame rates. This feature is initially nowhere to be found in the PC version of the game, but using this mod, Alex managed to create a set of commands that make it work very well depending on the frame rate and resolutions you are targeting. He makes a great job at explaining the whole thing in his video, which I'm linking in the description and corner so you could see the full details of how this works. But the gist is that these variables control the frame time before the game starts cutting resolution, the frame time on which the game starts rising resolution, how aggressively it starts cutting down on resolution, and the minimum resolution you can get. The frame time for 60 FPS is 16.7 milliseconds per frame. It is usually a good idea to aim a bit lower, and Alex calibrated it to start cutting resolution at 14 and start raising it at 13.5. The frame time for 30 FPS is 33.3 milliseconds per frame, so I adjusted those values accordingly for low-end PCs that can only reasonably do that, and also lowered the minimum resolution to the lowest the game allows before glitching, 0.3. Everything else is left just as Alex's most aggressive preset. What is this useful for? Well, if your PC is almost able to play this game at 30 or 60 FPS when things are quiet, but you start seeing a lot of drops during action, these profiles can help you dynamically drop the resolution during combat to keep things stable. This takes an extra amount of VRAM, but on integrated GPUs that have no VRAM and just use regular RAM, as long as you have 8 gigs or more, it works fine. Now I have linked a file in the description with all the commands I have tested. First a section with all the graphical reduction ones, and then a section with the dynamic resolution commands set for 30 FPS, but with commented lines for 60 FPS. Be sure to remove or customize commands to fit with the actual effect you want to achieve, and then set the file in the installation directory of the game in the folder called base. As long as you have the mod installed, you can then, when you start the game, run the command exec plus the name of the file to batch run all its commands at once. So, how much of a difference does that actually make? To test, I ran Doom 2016 on my personal laptop using the integrated GPU. So that is a pretty good i5-8250U with an integrated Intel UHD 620 and 8 gigs of RAM. If we try and run the game on full 1080p on the lowest settings, the result ain't great, as you will expect, although applying all the graphical tweaks from the files improves matters significantly, which is great progress. However, it wasn't reasonable to try and get this game to work on 1080p on this Intel HD anyway, but I wanted this full resolution without scaling just to show you how much of a difference the resolution scaling can do. And bam! There we go. So what advantage does this provide over manually dropping the resolution in the menu? Well, for starters, it can drop lower under what the menu usually allows, as you can see by the frame rate, and more interestingly, the system is able to increase and decrease resolution depending on the action on screen, so you always get close to 30 FPS with the highest resolution possible. Now, since the increasing of the resolution is set less aggressively than the dropping, the game does raise over 30 FPS quite a bit before resolution increases enough. But this can be fixed by using an external program to limit 30 FPS or simply changing the RS raise fraction to a higher number. Again, Alex's video explains quite well how to customize the scaler, and my file has the command for 60 FPS as well. So now you get to customize this to your heart's content. Do you need to go to these extremes of ruining a game's graphics to play? Likely not. But now you can refer to this video as to what each command does, and you can also add or remove commands until you find a balance that you find good. Using the tools provided by the game, Doom will now get stable performance on a lot of low-end systems. So if Doom is a franchise that you want to get into, the time is now. Which is good, because this game is always a part of my battery of low-end tests. So now, how about you see what can be tweaked currently on the new Doom Eternal, or even Half-Life Alyx? The low spec life beckons you.
Demonic presence eliminated.